In the 13th century, the world trembled beneath the charge of Mongol hooves. From the vast northern steppes, the Mongol Empire rose like a storm, unstoppable, unforgiving, unmatched. They swept across continents, conquering China, crushing Persia, and shaking the very gates of Europe. Wherever they marched, cities burned, kingdoms crumbled, and history was rewritten in blood. At its peak, this was the largest land empire the world had ever known. But when their shadow reached south, toward a small land called Dai Viet, they believed it would be just another easy conquest. They were wrong. This was no ordinary land. It was a nation forged in fire, where the spirit of the people burned brighter than fear. Dai Viet stood, not with overwhelming numbers or weapons, but with unbreakable courage. And there, in the heart of Southeast Asia, the Mongol Empire met something it had never known before: defeat. In 1258, war flames scorched the southern skies. The thunder of hooves echoed across the land. It was the Mongol Empire, the most powerful military force on earth, charging south toward Dai Viet. They weren't just invading a small kingdom. They aimed to turn this land into a launching pad to conquer the southern song and devour all of China. The spark, 1257. In 1257, the infamous Mongol general Uriyangkadai Ngotlong Haptai, who had crushed entire regions of China, sent envoys to the Tran dynasty with a message: "Let us pass through your land to strike the southern song." The plan was clear. To swallow China, they had to trample Dai Viet first. But the Tran court saw through the lie. King Tran Tantong stood firm. He imprisoned the Mongol envoys, knowing that meant choosing war. The Mongols mobilized. When no word came back from his envoys, Uriyangkadai flew into a rage. He immediately assembled an army of 50,000 troops, split into three wings. The vanguard, led by Triet Zhou, advanced along the Thao River toward Binh Le Marsh. The second wing, under his son Achuan, followed to provide reinforcements. Uriyangkadai himself commanded the rear, directing the full offensive. The Tran's bold response upon hearing the news, King Tran Tantong gathered his generals and made a bold decision. "We will not hide behind walls. We will draw them in and strike head-on." The strategy was clear. Let the enemy come deep, then crush them in a decisive battle at Binh Le Nguyen. Preparing for war. The Tran military had around 100,000 troops, but only 20,000 royal guards near the capital were immediately battle-ready. They quickly summoned 40,000 local troops, totaling 60,000 soldiers, along with war elephants, horses, and river fleets rushing toward Binh Le. A king at war. King Tran Tantong took personal command, leading 6 elite royal divisions: Thien Tuoc, Thien Chuang, Tan Duc, Chuang Tan, Tan Sac, Kung Tan, reinforced by veteran troops from the capital. Across the wide plains of Binh Le, a deadly battlefield took shape. The flames were rising. Dai Viet was ready to face the most feared army in human history. Battle of Binh Le Nguyen, Sea of Fire in the Field. When Ngotlong Haptai crossed the river, Dai Viet forces assembled at Binh Le Nguyen. The sky burned red. The earth cracked beneath hooves. The battle began before the sun reached its peak. Tran cavalry charged, slashing through enemy lines, but the Mongol horsemen, veterans of countless wars, fought as they encircled, retreated as they fired. Every arrow struck its mark. The winter plains, cold and dry, now turned into a sea of fire. The Tran army fought with all their will, but the battlefield shattered, piece by piece. Flags fell, blades broke, men dropped. Black smoke covered the sky. The wind howled. War drums drowned in the thunder of hooves. Then the signal horn called the retreat. No one thought of glory anymore. There was only One mission left: protect the king. Binh Le Nguyen was a defeat, but not a defeat of spirit. It was the first fall of a nation learning to rise beneath the thunder of history's most fearsome cavalry. A masterful battle of wits between the fierce Tran of Dai Viet and the famed Mongol general Dai. On one side the man who forged the Tran dynasty from chaos. On the other, a seasoned commander of the mightiest empire the world had ever seen. After their setback at Binh Le Nguyen, the Mongols were determined to reclaim their pride. Despite having only half the number of troops, Dai commanded with surgical precision, breaking through Dai Viet's strongest defenses. His reconnaissance cavalry moved like an all-seeing eye, watching over every breath of the battlefield. Even before battle commenced, he had seized the upper hand, plotting the retreat routes, planning to steal boats and sever all escape. Had it not been for Le Tan shielding the emperor with his own body, the war might have ended that very day, in ruin for Dai Viet. Though the court narrowly escaped, the situation remained dire. The main army had lost over half its strength. Elite troops under Tran were cut off. Morale was collapsing. There were even voices urging the emperor to flee to the Song. Emperor Tran Thai Tong, a wise and impassioned sovereign, now adrift, like a rudderless ship in stormy seas. But even then, Dai Viet still had one anchor left. In the nation's darkest hour, Grand Chancellor Tran Thu, a heroic giant of the realm, rose to shoulder the fate of the nation. Since the age of 17, he had fought beside Tran Tu Khan, carving out a dynasty from war and blood, 50 years of chaos, and nothing had ever broken this iron-willed man. Facing Dai, he knew to die defending the capital would have been in vain. He chose to retreat, cold, deliberate, strategic. It wasn't new, Western Xia, Great Jin dynasty. They tried the same and were crushed under Mongol hooves. The Mongols waged war to feed war. As long as people remained, there would be food to plunder, fuel for conquest. Cruelty is the nature of the formidable. But what made Tran Thu truly fearsome was this. He was ruthless not only to his enemies, but to his own, for the sake of national survival. When Dai entered Thunglong, he was stunned. The capital was nothing but an empty shell. Before him stood not triumph, but the chill of a retreat so precise, so coldly calculated, it left even the conqueror uneasy. Only those who lived it truly understand, no victory ever comes easily, because every victory is a trade, and always, sacrifice follows. The scorched earth strategy was a perilous move. The Tran court would never have chosen it if they had any other way, because this was a double-edged sword. Picture it. To make this plan work, our army had to evacuate entire towns in mere days, then burn everything they left behind. Homes, food, supplies, all turned to ash. Villages near Thang and Tien Truong reduced to cinders. When the Tran chose this path, it meant they were all in, a life and death gamble. But the Tran heroes, once they chose to act, they committed. No hesitation, no turning back. The king ordered bridges destroyed, traps laid, raids launched to slow the enemy's advance. It was a race against time. And when the Mongols entered the capital, just in time, our forces had slipped away. Dai stood stunned. Not just the royal court, not just the army, but the entire population was gone. An empty capital, no people, no food. A blow struck straight at the mind. The Mongols ransacked Thang, searched every alley, every house, but found no one and found nothing. Uriyangkadai knew he'd walked into a trap, but the worst part, this was no hidden ambush. It was an open trap, a bait laid in plain sight. Sensing danger, the general pulled out of the capital. He set up camp east of the Red River, reorganized, tended to the troops, waited, a move worthy of a seasoned commander. At Dong Bo Dau, he raised thousands of tents. Soldiers kept strict formation, weapons always at hand, 3 layers of watch, guard posts at every approach, cavalry, scouts, circling Thang Long, day and night. They searched for the Dai Viet army, for food, for tracks, for any sign, but everything was already within the Tran's design. Battle ignites, the king rides to war. 3 days after capturing Thang Long, Ngolong Hop Tai still found no trace of Dai Viet's main force. He ordered scouts to search farther, from riverbanks to distant hills, from abandoned villages to silent forests. But not a single footprint could be found. And that was precisely when Dai Viet's great army had already moved along the Nai River, closing in on Dong Bo Dau. Then it came, just before dawn, a sudden rain of arrows poured down on the Mongol encampment. Tents trembled, horses screamed, cries of "K" erupted from all directions. Mongol soldiers jolted awake, unarmored, confused, cut down before they could rise. Chaos spread like wolves startled in the dead of winter. But this was no minor skirmish. This was a full-scale assault, planned, coordinated, decisive. Wave after wave of Tran forces, naval troops, cavalry, infantry, struck directly at the weak points in the Mongol lines. Mongol scouts were eliminated at the outer perimeter. 3 layers of defense collapsed like foam on the river. Ngolong Hop Tai awoke to the pounding of war drums. Before he could don his armor, his central camp was already in flames. This was no longer guerrilla warfare. This was a declaration of war in broad daylight, a counter-offensive long awaited. And in the distance, gliding silently along the river, on a light boat, King Tran Thai Tong himself led the charge. The entire court and the nation poured everything they had into this first counteroffensive. They did not strike to intimidate, they struck to survive. The Mongol encampment burned from the center. Flames spread outward, consuming everything in their path. Steel clashed, battle cries rose, and the Tran war cry shook the earth. The lines were breached. The formation collapsed. Ngolong Hop Tai tried to rally the troops, but his commanders, cut off, orders, lost, signals, chaotic. Their counterattack crumbled before it could begin. The Mongols fled toward the river, but their retreat was blocked. Dai Viet cavalry had sealed the path. The battlefield became a living quake. Men fell, horses shrieked, spears lit the mist of morning. Le Tan led the pursuit from the south, driving the final strike into the Mongol rear. Ngolong Hop Tai was wounded. In front, a tightening noose. Behind, the churning Nai River. With no way out, he leapt into the river and swam upstream to escape. The Dai Viet counteroffensive ended in total victory. Mongol army shattered, commanders fell, the land held, and Thang Long rose from the ashes. The Battle of Dong Bo Dau was not just a clash of armies. It was a thunderous declaration from a small nation against the most feared empire on earth.